all right. This is not ESPN's 30 for 30, but it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. Going to try to get it done in 98 days. Probably not going to get it done in 98 days, but however, I am shooting to get it done by the beginning of the new season, which starts September 10th against the Dallas Cowboys, and I should be able to get that done. So we're forging our head. We're in the mid-70s, 1976, which just happened to be the 52nd season in the history of the New York Giants. It was the 52nd season in the history of the Giants, the 57th season in the history of the NFL. NFL started in 1920, Giants started in 1925, so the Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. So 1976, interesting season. Had some different things happening. One thing was constant, like death, taxes, and the Giants had a losing record. That's the three things that were constant during the 70s of the Giants. So that remained a constant, losing season. But, had some interesting things going on. The Giants finally got their own stadium. The Giants Stadium. They moved in. It took them a little while. It took them the first four games in the 1976 season. They were on the road, but finally, what was the date? October 10th. So October 10th, 1976, they officially opened up Giant Stadium. So the Giants, after playing on the road almost all of 1973, all of 1974, because there was the Yale Bowl. The first two games in 1973 season, they played at Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium closed up, I think, for renovations. So the Giants, for the next almost three seasons, were just like nomads, just kind of wandering around, a team with really basically without a home. And in 1975, they shared Shea Stadium with the New York Jets before finally, and this is one of the actually now we're finding that just a few times that the Giants ever had their own stadium, meaning it's not a baseball stadium. Put it to you that way. 1925 to 1955, the Giants shared the Polo Grounds with the New York Giants baseball team. 1956, to the first two games of 1973, the Giants shared Yankee Stadium with the New York Yankees baseball team. Then, of course, they played in the Yale Bowl for 73 and 74. 1975, they shared Shea Stadium with the Jets. So the Giants never, ever had their own home, something that nobody else could call home. It wasn't a baseball stadium. The New York Cosmos, they held concerts there and all kinds of other stuff. The New York Cosmos played soccer there. I got to see a couple soccer matches there in the late 70s. I know I saw Pele one time. Great, just a phenomenal atmosphere. But anyway, basically, this was their own home. They weren't sharing it with the Jets like they are now. So from I think 76 to, I think the Jets played at Shea Stadium. I think it was to 83 or 84. So the Jets started sharing, Giant Stadium with the Giants, in 84, 85. But so from like 76 to like 83 or so, the Giants had their own stadium all to themselves. So it was an interesting season. Also, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks entered the league as expansion teams. This would be the fourth time in the Giants' history where they actually had two coaches in the same season. We'll go over this a little more depth and detail, but Bill Arnsparger, after the team started 0-7, he got fired, and they brought in John McVay. To be their new head coach. So basically, he was the interim coach, but the Giants finished 3-4 in their final 7 games, and things were really looking up. So he got a new deal, and so he wound up coaching the Giants for the next 2 seasons after this. But I mean, it started off. It was really, really ugly. It started off for the Giants here. Where are we at here? Let's read this here. Let's read it. What does Wikipedia have on the 76 season here? The New York Giants was the franchise 52nd season in the National Football League. The Giants had a 3-11 record in 76 and finished in last place in a 5-team NFC East. Finished in last place. Shocking. The season was highlighted by the opening of the new Giants Stadium at the New Jersey Meadowlands in East Rutherford on October 10th. In the first game of the stadium, after 4 road games to open the season, the defending NFC champion Dallas Cowboys handed the Giants a 24-14 loss. The Giants then suffered defeats against Minnesota and Pittsburgh. Falling to 0-7 after Week 7, at this time they fired third-year head coach Bill Arnsparger, whose Giants team had lost 28 times in 35 games. So basically, he was 7-28 as a coach. Oh my God. I mean, actually, things kind of looked up a little bit because you figure 1974, that was his first season. They won 2 games. 1975, they won 5 games. So, I mean, all honestly, new stadium, right? I mean, they won 2 games. Then the second season, they won 5 games. You figure maybe they'd win 6 or 7 games and just keep building on that. But it wasn't. Well, it was not meant to be. John McVay was named the team's interim coach, although Director of Operations Andy Robustelli said the appointment was not strictly on a temporary basis. So, anyway, New York lost its first 2 games under McVay, and they couldn't score. They couldn't score touchdowns. It was just. I mean, this. You think 1974 they averaged 14 points a game. 1975 they averaged 15 points a game. 1976 they averaged 12 points a game. That's painful football to watch. Just unbelievable, ungodly painful to watch. The Giants' first win at Giant Stadium came on November 14 when they defeated the Washington Redskins 12-9. They how many games did they go in a row here? Row in a row without scoring a touchdown. I mean, it's just unbelievable. 1, 2, 3, 4. They went 4 games in a row without scoring a touchdown. Actually, if you include the Minnesota game, they went 5 games. They scored 1 touchdown in 5 games. 1 touchdown in 5 games. We'll go over the games as we go along here, but the 12-9 victory over the Washington Redskins, in which they kicked 4 field goals, was the first victory ever over George Allen. George Allen had beaten the Giants 11 consecutive times with the Redskins. So basically in 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75, the Redskins swept the Giants. 1976, we're going to go over the first game of the season. The Redskins beat the Giants to make it 11 games in a row. However, if you add the 3 games that George Allen, when he was coaching with the Rams, I think it was 66, 68, 70, or 60. I know it was 66 and 70. Might have been 66, 69, and 70, something like that. But there's 3 games where George Allen was coaching the Rams where the Rams beat the Giants. So George Allen had never lost to the Giants. He was 14-0 against the Giants when they came in to play the Giants in Giant Stadium. He was 14-0 again. It didn't seem like they were ever going to lose to the Giants. Well, they finally did. And matter of fact, the last 3 times the Giants faced George Allen, they would beat him. They would sweep him in 1977. And that sweep in 77 would keep the Redskins out of the playoffs, and that would be the end of George Allen. In their final 4 games, they won twice. Linebacker Brad Van Pelt became the first Giant to receive a Pro Bowl invitation since 72. I mean, sad. Following the season, McVay was retained as head coach, signing a 2-year contract. For the 76 season, and now based in New Jersey, the Giants debuted their new helmet design where they had the Giants on the side. It says Giants. Changed from the stylized NY, the disco version, which it was cute, but to the words Giants underlined in block letters. They wore these exact helmets through the 79 season. In 1980, the helmet's white stripes were eliminated. These helmets remained unchanged through 1999. And then in 2000, they went back to the little NY on the side of the helmet. So they used to have from 76 to 79, they used to have white stripes. And then in the middle, I believe, was the red stripe. And it was from 76 to 79, they had the white stripe and a red stripe with the Giants on there. And then after 79 going into 80, the white stripes were eliminated. And they just had the red stripe down there with the Giants on the side. But that's what Wikipedia has to say. Let's see here. The Giants, I mean, they started off once again, preseason, and a nice preseason. They lost the first game in the preseason in overtime. They lost 13-7 to the Patriots. So they started off, 0-1, but then they won their next 4 games. They beat the Jets. Apparently, on Wednesday, August 11th, they beat the Jets at Yankee Stadium. This would become the first time that the Jets and the Giants ever played each other in New York. All the other times was in the Yale Bowl. They played each other in the preseason, in the preseason games, shall I say. All right. The first time they ever played each other was in 1970 during the regular season. They played each other at Yankee Stadium, but then they played each other in 1974, which was in the Yale Bowl. But every time that the Jets and the Giants, which started in 1969, faced each other in the preseason, they were always at the Yale Bowl. This was the first time in preseason that the Jets and the Giants actually played in New York, which wound up being in Yankee Stadium. Oddly enough, which wound up being the home of the Giants until they basically, I don't want to say got kicked out of there, but but anyway, but the Giants would prevail 16-14. Then the following week actually, I mean, this is just kind of odd. Go to show you. 3 days later, on August 14th, so they played the Jets on August 11th. August 14th, 3 days later, they played the Houston Oilers in Houston. They won 30-14. Then the following Friday, on August 20th, they would travel to Pittsburgh and beat the defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers 17-0. Because remember, the Steelers won Super Bowl, I guess it was 11. Or is that 10? But they beat the Steelers won the Super Bowl the year before. They won. Oh, let's see. We can figure this out here. Super Bowl 10. The Steelers won Super Bowl 10 over the Dallas Cowboys 21-17. So the Giants actually, somehow they pulled off back-to-back wins over the defending Super Bowl champion Steelers. They beat the Steelers in preseason the year before 24-7. And this year they beat the defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers 17-0. So, I mean, things were looking good. And then the Giants on the following Saturday, on August 28th, they went to at Lambeau Field. They played the Packers, and they beat them 20-16. So now the Giants are 4-1. They lost an overtime game against New England. They're 4-1. Then they did wind up losing their final game, their final regular season preseason game. I do apologize. On Saturday, September 4th, they played at San Diego Stadium, the Chargers. They lost 14-13. So preseason, they were 4-2. They lost one game by a point. They lost another game in overtime. So, I mean, things, possibly looking up. They won 5 games the year before. This is 1976. They also got Larry Zonka really to help out their run game. He was kind of, I don't want to say a shell of himself, but I mean, the blocking the Giants gave him was not what the Dolphins blocking gave him. Plus, he'd been around for a while, so he was starting to wear down a little bit. But, but he did give him a little shot in the arm now, right? So, I mean, the Giants were 4-2 heading into the regular season. Let's see here. Let's go over the draft here, shall we? All right, so the Giants, who won 5 games the year before, wound up having picked 13 in the first round, and they took Troy Archer. Very, very good pick from Colorado, defensive tackle. Problem was, unfortunately, I mean, he was somebody you can certainly build around for the future. Fantastic pick, this, that, and the other thing. Unfortunately, he died. He played 3 seasons for the Giants, and then his truck skidded off a road on like a rain-soaked highway, and he drove into a pole, I believe. I'm not sure if it was a telephone pole or a pole, or it might have been a tree. But there was 2 people in his truck. I think the other person survived, but Troy Archer did not, sadly, because he was not a Hall of Fame guy or nothing like that, but he's a very solid defensive tackle, somebody you could take with you into the future. And he would have wound up playing with Lawrence Taylor without question, because he would have made it to into the 80s. And that was the one thing that I liked. That's what I mean. It's nice the guys get paid nowadays and all that, and everything is based on money and all that and everything. But see, what I liked about the way it was back then, and unfortunately, for the guys, a lot of guys had to work other jobs and stuff like that because, their salaries were not unbelievably amazing like they are today. Their money was not life-changing like it is today. So, but the thing was back then is that if you drafted somebody, for the most part, and he was a good player, like a Harry Carson, Brad Van Pelt, George Martin, Brian Kelly, and you go on and on. Troy Archer probably would have been one of those players too. You could keep him, because there was no salary cap. Nobody, everybody wanted to make as much money as they could, but for the most part, you were able to keep guys for long periods of time. It wasn't like, well, we can't, we have to let this guy go because we can't afford him or anything like that. It was always a way to, try to keep guys, of course they didn't get paid, I said, once again, anywhere near what they did today. But, but I'm saying, but you can build a team that way and carry them into the future. You draft, as 2 years go by, you have maybe 4 or 5 guys on defense and you keep carrying them year, and then the next year you add maybe another 1 or 2 pieces to the puzzle and you carry those guys into the future. And then the next year you draft another 1 guy, right? After a while, guys would maybe retire or something like that. But, if you had a nice core, you can keep bringing those guys along year after year and keep adding a piece of the puzzle here or there and really round out a nice team, because you can do that. Nowadays, you can't. You can't pay, if you have a great group of guys, everybody obviously wants to get paid, understandably, but I'm saying the way it is nowadays, you have a great group of guys, everybody's going to want 10, 20, $30 million a year, and you can't pay everybody $30 million a year. You have to start letting guys go, unfortunately. But that's what I liked about it back then. It was more of a team, atmosphere, because you could keep a group of guys, the same group of guys together for long periods of time. It's rather difficult nowadays. But anyway, so the Giants got Troy Archer in the first round. Great pick. All right, the second round, the Giants, this is when they traded their second round pick away to the Dallas Cowboys. They traded to get Craig Morton. Unfortunately, the Giants traded away their 75 first round pick to the Cowboys and their 1976 second round pick to the Cowboys when they got Craig Morton. So unfortunately, this would be Craig Morton's final season with the Giants. 1977, he'd be with the Denver Broncos, and he would lead them to a Super Bowl against the Dallas Cowboys, which is the team he came from. But anyway, so the Giants didn't have a second round pick because they gave it to the Cowboys when they got Craig Morton. And they took Jim Jensen. So that was not a phenomenal pick. But anyway, so round 3, the Giants did not have a pick in round 3. Let's see, because the Packers traded Jim Delgado to the Giants for the Giants' 1976 third round pick. So, and then the Packers wound up trading it, I think, to the Chiefs. So the Giants took Jim Delgado. He was a quarterback. Let me see. Did he get any playing time? No, it doesn't look like it. No. Doesn't look like it. So I don't know if he was on the sideline the whole time or exactly what, but yeah, Giants had Jim Delgado, and that's why they traded their 3rd round pick away for. So once again, high draft picks, and the Giants just trade them away. So the 4th round, it just happened to be a very special individual the Giants drafted. Some guy by the name of Harry Carson. So they once again, a couple pieces to the puzzle, especially on defense. These guys they could carry forward for hopefully years to come. It was not meant to be with Troy Archer. However, it was meant to be with Harry Carson. He was 1976 to 1988 and into the Hall of Fame. All right, in 2006, he went to the Hall of Fame. Let's see. So then we got that's round 4. Let's see, round 5. The Giants took Melvin Wilson. Okay, yep. Didn't get much from him. The Giants' 6th round pick was forfeited per the Giants media guide. So somehow some reason why they forfeited their 6th round pick. So they didn't have a 6th round pick. How about round 7? Round 7. They oh my goodness, wow. Jackie Williams, wow. The Giants and the Bills traded. They traded Leo Hart to the Giants for an undisclosed draft pick. And they also traded, the Giants also got Larry Watkins, too. And the Giants traded their 7th round pick to the Buffalo Bills, for this. So apparently the Giants got Leo Hart and Larry Watkins from the Bills for their 7th round pick. All right, I mean, let's see. Round 8, the Giants took John Jordan. Didn't get much from him. Then the Giants traded once again their 9th round pick. They got Bruce Bannon. Wow, didn't get much from him. Round 10, the Giants took John Thomas. Didn't get much from him. Round 11, the Giants took Craig Brantley. Did not get much from him. Round 12, the Giants took Jerry Goldstein, quarterback. Yeah, he was the trifecta. Randy Dean, Jerry Goldstein, Joe Pisarcik. Oh yeah, how about those 3 as your quarterbacks, huh? Holy cow, huh? Wow. Oh my goodness. All right, so round 13. Not this year. Not in but a couple years in the future. Because this year they had Norm Snead, they had Goldstein, but they also had obviously they still had Craig Morton. But so round 13, the Giants took Rick Caswell. Didn't get much from him. Round 14, we're running out of rounds here, guys. So just bear with me. Around 14, the Giants took Jerry Mullane. Didn't get much from him. Round 15, Giants took Eddie Morgan. Didn't get much from him. Round 16, Giants took David Lawson. There you go. Didn't get much from him. And round 17, Giants selected Steve Kernett, future Hall. No, I'm just kidding. Didn't get anything from him. So, but those were the Giants picks. So, I mean, they at least they drafted. They did get a Hall of Famer, Harry Carson. Right. So the Giants, after starting the season, the preseason 4-2, things not looking too bad. But the problem was the past 3 years. I mean, they averaged 14, 15, and 12. So what is that? 14, 15, 29, and 12, 41. So they averaged not even quite 14 points a game for 3 consecutive seasons. They didn't. I mean, you think. You look at their offense, the Giants' offense nowadays. You're like, man, we only averaged 17 or 8. And I know it's a little different. It's more of a passing league. I get that. Field goal kickers, are far more accurate than they were back then. I mean, nowadays, if a field goal kicker misses more than like 2 field goals in a season, he's fired. I get that. So, field goal kickers are a lot more accurate. There's more scoring. The quarterback plays a lot better, and this and all that stuff. But still, regardless, I mean, you don't even average 14 points a game for 3 consecutive seasons. I mean, that's some painful football to watch. No, but that was a reason why a lot of times the Giants were in a lot of the games was because their defense held them in. The offense just could never score enough points. I mean, it was horrible, absolutely horrible. So let's let's go through this painful season, shall we? Oh. Cricket. Cricket, yeah. Maybe the Giants should have took up cricket. Maybe they would have had a better record. So this is the first game of the season. Sunday, September 12th. They lost to the Redskins 10 consecutive times. This was the first game I ever really remember crying like a little bitch after the game is over. It just ripped the shreds right out of my heart. I just couldn't take it anymore. Just the pain was just ungodly. Once again, we lost to the Redskins. We were beaten. We were losing 12-10 to the Redskins. It was about 5 minutes to go in the game. Craig Morton drops back to pass, and he right down the middle of the field. Walker Gillette's running like a post pattern. He hits Gillette. Gillette catches the ball in stride, right? Running down, breaks free, gets in the end zone. About 5 minutes to go to the game. The Giants were up 17-12. I remember me and my dad were jumping up and down in our family room, getting all excited. The Giants might win a game. They might beat the Redskins, this, that, and the other thing. Well, then it was about 2 minutes to go or so in the game. The Giants punted the ball. Dave Jennings boomed the punt. Was it guy Brown? I can't remember Brown. Let's see. He was a real good returnman for the Redskins. He ran one back like 40-something yards. Punt return. Eddie Brown. He ran one back. It was like 45 yards, I think it was. He caught the ball at the Redskins 15-yard line or somewhere around there, or 14 or 12-yard line. He caught it deep in his own territory, ran it back like 40 some odd yards. By the time the Giants tackled him, he was well in Giants territory. And the Redskins still needed to score a touchdown. I mean, they were 45 yards away or so, but they still needed to score a touchdown. They had only scored one touchdown all game. And just prior to this, a few minutes prior to this, Dave Gallagher and Jack Gregory broke one of them. I think it was Jack Gregory broke Billy Kilmer's nose. He had to come out and they had to tape his nose up because it was bleeding and all of that. So there was about 2 minutes to go in the game, and then somewhere around there, I guess. So Billy Kilmer comes onto the field. Mind you, have to go 45 yards, score a touchdown. Well, so he starts moving them a little bit, and then it gets down to, it was what was it? Third down, or it was fourth down. Got to fourth down and 10 yards to go at the, I don't know, it was the Giants 24-yard line, somewhere around there. So it's 4th and 10. They got to complete a pass, got to be 10 yards, unless they decide to run the ball, But so he drops back to pass. The Giants are in the dreaded prevent defense, which of course only prevents you from winning. The whole game, they're rushing 4 guys. Well, this time they only rushed 3 guys. They drop 8 guys in coverage. They almost get to him with the 3 guys. So possibly if they had the 4 guys, maybe they sack them. But they had the prevent defense, 8 guys in coverage. And, of course, he hits Roy Jefferson down to the Giants' 8-yard line, somewhere around there, first down. So there's 30 or 40 seconds left to go in the game. Billy Kilmer drops back to pass. And was it Thomas, the running back? He hit Mike Thomas, a 5-yard touchdown pass. And they kicked the extra point, and the Giants were winning 17-12, and they wound up losing 19-17. And I just couldn't. I went in the bathroom, and I was in there for 15, 20 minutes, just crying like a little baby. still to this day, there's a couple games which haunt me to this day. The final game of the 1970 season when we lost to the Rams, which knocked us out of the playoffs, and this one right here, I just couldn't take it anymore. We lost 19-17, so we started the season 0-1. Then the first 4 games were all on the roads. Then we went to Philadelphia, and we played the Eagles. We lost 20-7. Then we played the Rams in week 3, September 26th. We went to the Rams. The Giants were winning 10-0 in this game. Was it in the first quarter they were up 10-0? Let's see here. Giants were winning. Yep, 10-0. They were up 10-0 in the first quarter. Didn't score a point the rest of the game. And the Rams came back. The Rams tied it up. It was 10-10 going into, once again, the defense. The Rams were a very good team. The offense did absolutely nothing the last 3 quarters. The defense kept a very good Rams team who was playing at home. Giants kept them in the game. It was 10-10 going into the fourth quarter. The Rams scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and wound up winning 24-10. But I even remember in this game, there was it might have been the third quarter. I don't know if it was Jim Bertelsen or Capoletti. Might have been Capoletti. The Rams had the ball like around the Giants' 2-yard line or whatever it was or so. And it was either, did they have Bertelsen? Was he there too? Capoletti. Yeah, Bertelsen. Yeah, it might have been Bertelsen. It wasn't McCutcheon. It was either Bertelsen or John Capoletti. Got the ball, and he got to like around the half-yard line. And this, I think it was still tied 10-10. But you can see the Rams were, they kept, every time they got the ball, they kept moving in the scoring position and all. And you just figure it was just a matter of time before the Rams would forge ahead and wind up winning the game because the Giants' offense did absolutely nothing. But the guy, whoever it was, Capoletti or Burleson, got the ball like around the half-yard line or so, and the ball got knocked out, and the Giants recovered it. And you can even see on they had a replay there and all that, and you can see he got inside the 1, but the ball came out, and I was Brad Van Pelt recovered it, but the Giants, saved themselves from going behind, for at least a short period of time. So I think the score was still tied 10-10, but just shortly after that, I'm sure the Giants had to punt it back to the Rams, and the Rams scored. Let's see where we got here. Capoletti scored on a 32-yard pass from James Harrison, and then Jim Bertelsen scored on a 1-yard rush. And this was in the fourth quarter, 2 touchdowns. But so the Giants were up 10-0 in the first quarter and couldn't score another point the rest of the game. And then they wound up losing to the Rams, and now the Giants are 0-3. So now the Giants, they go to St. Louis. They play the Cardinals. They lose to the Cardinals 27-21. So now the Giants are 0-4. So the first game in New Giants Stadium, they play the Dallas Cowboys, and they play them tough. I think it was 17-14, and then Staubach hit the one that went for the jugular, for the dagger. Nope. Yep, it was 24-7. I thought it was 17-14. Now the Cowboys were up 24-7 in the fourth quarter, and then Larry Zonka scored on a 6-yard run late in the fourth to make it 24-14. But so it wasn't even that close. Actually, the Cowboys were up 17-0 at halftime. So I thought it was a little bit. Jimmy Robinson scored the first touchdown ever in brand new Giants Stadium for the Giants. But the Cowboys were up 17-0, and they were also up 24-7 in the fourth quarter. So the Cowboys pretty much had this one under control pretty much all the way. So now the Giants are 0-5. They go on the road to face the old Minnesota Vikings and their old quarterback, Fran Tarkenton. The Vikings would win 24-7, so now the Giants are 0-6. And this is what did in Bill Arnsparger. I was at the start, their second game in the Giants Stadium. They played the defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost 27-0. Just absolutely horrible. So then I got this article here where it says the hapless New York Giants are no longer Coach Bill Arnsparger's problem. The team winless in 7 national football games this season was turned over to John McVay when Arnsparger was fired as head coach. The firing came in the final year of Arnsparger's 3-year contract and followed a 27-0 drubbing by the Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday, a game in which the club looked totally listless. I saw the game on TV. It was absolutely ungodly. It was just ungodly, horrible. Andy Robicelli The director of operations says it was time for a change. The club's director of operations, who huddled with club president Wellington Mara before announcing Huntsberger's dismissal. So they brought in John McVay, who was, he coached for 2 seasons in the World Football League. The Giants had other guys on their roster. They had some guy by the name of Marty Schottenheimer. Maybe you heard of him. He was their linebackers coach. Well, for whatever reason, they didn't want to hire him as the new coach. They brought in John McVay, who had 2 seasons of coaching in the World Football League. He was an assistant coach. He wasn't even like an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator or anything. He was an assistant coach. The Giants brought him in this year as an assistant coach for research and development. And so he was an assistant coach for research and development, and they made him their head coach. And I said, why Marty Schottenheimer? I mean, he was young at the time too, but once again, but this is the 4th time for the New York Giants in their history where they had 2 coaches in the same season. 1930, Leroy Andrews was dismissed with 2 games to go. And Benny Friedman coached. It was an interim coached the final 2 games of the 1930 season. Of course, we had Ben McAdoo, right, in 2017, I believe it was, and Steve Spagnuolo. I think he coached the final 3 games of the season, 3 or 4 games of the season for the Giants after McAdoo was given his walking papers. This season, we had Bill Arnsparger coach 7 games. John McVay coached the final 7 games. And in 1969, Ali Sherman coached the preseason for the Giants. After the preseason, he was let go, and Alex Webster was brought in. It had too many A's there. Ali Sherman was let go, was fired. Alex Webster coached the team after the preseason in 1970. So this is the 4th time that the Giants had 2 coaches in the same season. So the things, the things weren't looking too good. The Giants were 0-7. They couldn't score any points. The next week, the Philadelphia Eagles came to town. The Giants lost 10-0. So now they're 0-8. The next week, the Giants go on the road. They played the Dallas Cowboys. Played them real tough. They lost 9-3. So this is the 3rd game in a row they played the Giants. So now the Giants are 0-9. 3rd game in a row, Giants scored 3 points in 3 games. Haven't scored a touchdown in 3 games. 3 points. They kicked 1 field goal in 3 games. It was the first time the Giants were shut out back-to-back games since 1932. So you're going back 45 years almost before the Giants had been shut out in back-to-back games. Well, they did that in 1976. The Steelers shut them out 27-0. The Eagles shut them out 10-0. So then finally, week 10, the Washington Redskins come to town. The Giants finally beat them by a score of 12-9. I think was it Stuckey? Is he the one that intercepted the pass? I think it was 4th down. Let's see, interceptions here. Defensive, Steinke. My bad. The Giants also this season, they lost a couple of their starting cornerbacks as well, too. So the Giants, Jack Gregory was injured the few games of the season. The Giants were missing a cornerback. So the Giants had some injuries this year, all right? Not that you want to blame anything on injuries or whatever, but the Giants were up 12-9. Joe Danello kicked a 50-yard field goal. 50? Was it 50? Let's see here. Yep, 50-yard field goal. Put the Giants up 12-9 late in the 4th quarter. Redskins got the ball with Joe Theismann at quarterback, marching them down the field. By the way, the Giants won this game 12-9. They completed 3 passes all game. They were 3 out of 14 for 26 passing yards. Just goes to show you how absolutely pathetic. They ran the ball 49 times for 144 yards, which is cool. But they had 26 yards passing. After the quarterback got sacked twice, they lost 2 yards on sacks. So they had a net 24 yards passing in this game. 24 yards passing. They completed 3 passes all game long. 3. So with Joe Theismann at quarterback, he marched down the field, and I believe it was I believe it was 4th down. They had the ball like around the Giants' 7-yard line or so. Now they could have kicked the field goal, tied it up, and gone into overtime. But George Allen wanted to go for the win. Got to give the man a lot of credit. So on 4th down, Joe Theismann drops back to pass. Harry Carson comes crashing in through blitzes. It forces Theismann to step, to make a step. He's looking for somebody to throw the ball to, and and just as Harry Carson is reaching for him for a second time, Theismann throws the ball, and Steinke intercepts the pass in the end zone. Game over. Giants win. Giants finally, for the first 11 times, lost to the Redskins. This is the first time that they beat the Redskins since 1970. And so the Giants won 12-9. It was the first game the Giants ever won in Giants Stadium. They won 12-9. They beat the Redskins. So now the Giants are 1-9. The following week, they go on the road and they play the Denver Broncos. The Giants scored 2 touchdowns. The Broncos scored 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, the Giants lost because one of their extra points was blocked. So the Giants lost 14-13. So now the Giants are 1-10. But then good news would come to town. They played the Seattle Seahawks, right, in the expansion team, Seattle Seahawks. The Giants would win 28-16. So now the Giants are 2-10. So the Giants won back-to-back games because the following week the Detroit Lions came to town, and the Giants would beat the Lions on Sunday, December 5th, 24-10. So basically the Giants scored 52 points in 2 games. And without those 2 games, the Giants averaged probably maybe 10 points a game, maybe 9 points a game. But they scored 52 points in 2 games combined. So, I mean, that really helped their average big time. So now the Giants are 3-10. The final game of the season, the Cardinals came to town. The Giants were winning 14-10. The Cardinals had the ball. They marched down the field, and because the Cardinals were a good team then. But the Giants, the Cardinals got down to the goal line. They had to score a touchdown to win. It was late in the game. And on 3rd down and go, the Giants stopped them the first 2 times they got the ball. On 3rd down and goal from like the 1-yard line, half-yard line, whatever it was, they finally punched the ball in, and they wound up winning 17-14. So the Giants, what was it? They lost They lost 4 games under John McVay. They were 3-4. So in the 4 games they lost 4 games by a grand total of 20 points. So, I mean, they were very, very competitive. They lost by 3 to the Cardinals. They lost by 1 to the Broncos. They lost by 6 to the Cowboys, and they lost by 10 to the Eagles. So they're very, very competitive. So they went 3-4. So the Giants gave McVay, after the season was over with, a 2-year contract extension. So he would coach for those next 2 seasons, but those 2 seasons would be his final seasons coaching. So, I mean, the Giants, just 3-11, painful. I mean, once again, their defense kept them in a lot of games. I mean, if you look toward the end of the season, they gave up 10 points, 9 points, 9 points, 14 points, 16 points, 10 points, and 17 points. It was in the beginning of the season when Arnsparger was there. Once McVay came, I mean, their defense was really good. It was Arnsparger, who was the defensive-minded coach. The first 7 games, the Giants gave up a lot of points. They gave up 27, 24, 24, 27, 24, 20, and 19. But, I mean, it was just, it was the game when they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers and made them 0-7. It was just unbelievable. The Giants had 10 first downs against the Steelers and 151 total yards. I mean, it was just a painful, horrible game to watch. It was just like they didn't want to piss the Steelers off, But, so, I mean, it was just, once again, another absolutely horrible season for the New York Giants. It came to an end. But let's see here. Let's go over the 1976 season, all right? In the AFC, the Baltimore Colts would win. They were 11-3, the AFC East. New England would come in second place. They were the wild card team. They had a record of 11-3. The AFC Central, the Pittsburgh Steelers, would win with a record of 10-4. They beat the Bengals on a tiebreaker. The Bengals were 10-4 as well. The Oakland Raiders finished at 13-1. They were by far the best team in the NFL that year. So in the AFC playoff games, Pittsburgh beat Baltimore 40-14, and the Raiders beat the New England Patriots 24-21. Oddly enough, during the regular season, Oakland was 13-1. Oddly enough, their only loss during regular season was to the New England Patriots. They exacted their revenge on them in the playoffs. So it led up to the championship game with the Oakland Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oakland would win 24-7. The Steelers were extremely banged up. I think Rocky Bleier didn't play. Franco Harris didn't play. They had a lot of guys, the Steelers, banged up in that game, in the championship game, that did not play. But the Raiders wound up winning 24-7, sending them to the championship game, the Super Bowl. Over in the NFC, the Cowboys were in first place. They were 11-3. The Redskins were in second place. They were 10-4. They were the wild card team. Minnesota was 11-2-1. They won the NFC Central, and the NFC West once again was won by the Rams, who were 10-3-1. So in the playoffs, the Rams finally beat the Dallas Cowboys. They beat them 14-12. And then the Vikings beat Washington 35-20. So which set up a championship game where the Minnesota beat the Rams at Metropolitan Stadium, Minnesota. The Vikings won 24-13. So they sent the Vikings to the Super Bowl against the Raiders, and it was not a Super Bowl at all. It was actually rather it was a horrible game. The Vikings once again could not stop the run. What did they wind up with? The Raiders had 266 yards rushing. They ran the ball 52 times, 266 yards. They averaged 5.1 yards a carry. The Vikings, on the other hand, averaged 2.7 yards a carry. In the Super Bowl, the Vikings had a hard time stopping the run, and they couldn't run the ball. They went to 4 Super Bowls, and it was kind of like a common theme. They couldn't stop the run. During the regular season, they were one of the best. All 4 times they went to the Super Bowl, they were one of the best defenses in the NFL. And when it came to the Super Bowl, they just couldn't stop the run. And once again, it showed here that 266 yards rushing they gave up. They gave up 429 yards of offense. I mean, it was not a good Super Bowl at all. Let's see. There was no scoring in the first quarter, but then what we got? Oakland was scored 16 points in the second quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal. They missed one of their extra points was no good, so they were up 16-0 at halftime. Then in the third quarter, they kicked another field goal to go up 19-0. And finally, the Vikings got on the board in the third quarter. 47 seconds left to go. They made it 19-7. Sammy White caught an 8-yard touchdown pass from Fran Tarkenton. So now it's 19-7. But then once again, they couldn't stop the run at all. The Raiders marched back down the field. Banaszak had a 2-yard touchdown run to put them up 26-7. So then the Vikings got the ball, marching down the field. There's about 5 minutes to go in the game. Fran Tarkenton steps back to pass, throws a quick out on toward his left. Old man Willie Brown stepped in front of the pass. Badoosh! Ran it back 75 yards for a touchdown, interception, pick 6. Now the Vikings were marching. They were in Oakland territory and all of that. They were still down by 19 points, which was 3 scores. Lord knows if they ever came back. But after the pick 6, it was 32-7. And then finally, the Vikings scored. Stu Voigt had a 13-yard touchdown reception from Bob Lee. They put Fran Tarkenton. The game was over 32-7, so they put Bob Lee in. Bob Lee didn't do too bad, actually, in mop-up duty, though. He was 7 out of 9 for 81 yards and a touchdown. His passer rating was 141.2, so he did very, very well. But Stu Voigt caught a 13-yard touchdown reception from Bob Lee with 25 seconds left to go in the game to make it 32-14. But I mean, it was not much of a Super Bowl. I mean, the Vikings during the regular season, many times during the regular season were a good team, good solid team. Teddy, I was born in 76. All right, pal. All right, there you go. But I mean, the regular season, the Vikings were a very good team. And just like when it came time, and even in the playoffs, Vikings were a very good team. Came to the Super Bowl, they were not a very good team. They were just couple times it was just an embarrassment, really, straight up embarrassment. I mean, they lost 23-7 to the Chiefs. They lost 24-7 to the Dolphins. They lost 16-6 to the Steelers. They were down 32-7 with 25 seconds to go in the game against the Raiders. I mean, they're just really an embarrassment in the Super Bowl. But this would be the final game. This would be the final Super Bowl ever up until this season. And still going strong, that the Vikings in 1976, last time the Vikings went to the Super Bowl. Well, it was after the 76 season. The Super Bowl was played in 77. But so since 76, the Vikings have not gotten to a Super Bowl. They're 0-4. So, but once again, it was another horrible season, horrible, painful season to be a Giant fan. They started off 0-9 before they got their first win. Against the Washington Redskins. They opened up the new stadium. So, maybe things would turn around a little bit. No. 1977, 78, 79, and 80. All losing seasons. So, but there's a little glimmer. If you got your binoculars out and you're able to look on the horizon, like maybe a couple hundred miles into the future, in the horizon, you can zoom your binoculars in or your telescope, or whatever. There's a little glimmer of hope on the horizon. His name was called Lawrence Taylor, which would come in 1981. So you got to go 5 more years into the future. And then there's a little glimmer of hope then. Because 77, 8, 9, and 80 is just a lot like the rest of the 60s and 70s losing record. So, I mean, I can say much more for the 76 season, but they got themselves a nice brand new stadium now. That's pretty much about it. And they finally snapped their streak of losing games to George Allen. They snapped the streak at 11. But that pretty much wraps up the 1976 debacle season for the New York Giants. I'll be back again tomorrow with the 1977 season for the New York Giants, which just happened to be the 53rd season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.